Welcome to my channel and thank you for dialing in. This channel is dedicated to my book, Culture Analytics. And basically, in the first video, I'd like to share with you the ethos of why this book, why now, and hopefully with several other episodes about its practical applications, use cases, real life use cases, bring in a lot of partners, individuals that I've collaborated with along the way to discuss the very important culture topics about workplace culture, organizational culture. Let's start with the ethos of why I wrote the book. And I came out of research for many years, for almost 7 years all told, before started applying this research in real life. And the whole point is, can we make organizational culture the hero it deserves to be? We've seen it go wrong so many times, and we always blame culture, unfortunately, with every event. And it's true, we need to do so. But surely culture could also be our hero. And if we just look at some of the issues that we battle with every day. Some examples. Really, this is not a mega list, but you can imagine we've seen this throughout the past, whether be it the recent Boeing story around the culture of concealment and so on that costed the lives of so many people. With the design of the newest and latest aircraft, Boeing aircraft, the Volkswagen emissions scandal, known as Emission Gate, also, which is still fresh in our minds, albeit it was an issue that started back in 15. And you can go on to think about the Wells Fargo issues, toxic culture. BP had some issues, Enron, Facebook, you name it. There's really been many issues around organizational culture, workplace culture. So, what has really gone wrong is the first question that one should pause and ask about all of the commonality between those issues. Well, let's start by thinking, what do we want out of our culture? Any workplace culture should completely drive us to do great things every day, but should somewhat keep us out of trouble as well. It's a constant balance. We cannot achieve one at the expense of the other. It's a delicate balance. And the truth is that leaders who are typically important in our culture journey have been somewhat badly served over time for three core reasons. My research led me to three core areas. One is defining culture and values have been purely based on hunches. So really that's about, okay, what do we think is some good words that might define what our culture, what we stand for is all about. Fine, that's okay, but it doesn't necessarily come with evidence of, is that true? Is it really what we want? Does it achieve great things? Which kind of leads into the second point, which is measuring our culture has been somewhat inappropriately achieved through kind of the outcome measures of culture, so sentiment, engagement, qualitative investigation, or even looking at outcomes, sales and financial outcomes. All of those are important outcomes and, important to measure, but they are the lagging indicators. By the time you've measured them, you kind of got there, and you really want to know what are the leading indicators for measuring culture. As we all know, if you want to achieve a change, make a difference, you gotta always know what the leading indicator is. The final part is this lack of clarity on linking organizational and workplace culture to business outcomes. We've often, in fact, divorced the two. It's like we talk about culture as well, it just, we'll talk about it, but never mind what impact is on our outcomes. And we really need to common sense to link the lagging and leading indicators. So essentially, with all of that going on, all of the issues here that hindered our approach to managing a workplace culture, you end up with perhaps wrong values being dominant, wrong behaviors being dominant, undesired outcomes without meaning to. All of those kind of work against us. in our journey. So the first things I wanted to get into the book, and that's a glimpse from that, is really understanding the core difference between behaviors and outcomes. So behaviors are the foundations of our actions. It refers to choices that we make every day. Things like being expressive or not, following the rules, being fair. The outcomes are the consequence of the action. So once the behaviors have manifested fully somehow, either positive or negative, really, and dependent on various other factors, some are internal, some are external. Additional examples could be luck and timing and so on. Outcomes are often measured in terms of the accomplishments. So they are the incidents, the financial gains, recognition, formed opinions. These are all the consequence of the actions, the outcomes. While outcomes are very important for success, but relying solely on them to evaluate our efforts can lead to an incomplete understanding, incomplete picture of our actions, if you like. Likewise, embracing the balance becomes critical. So while the driving force behind our actions are the desired outcomes, understanding the distinction between the two is really important. Focusing solely on outcomes will lead to shortcuts without understanding the journey of how we got there, but also in contrast, placing excessive emphasis on pure behaviors without considering the outcome will result in lack of accountability, reduced motivations. An example of, well, I don't know why we're doing what we're doing. So that balance becomes really important to achieve what we want, i.e., the behaviors that we want around here and the outcomes they drive, what we call the lagging and leading indicators. So, what is missing? What are the three critical findings I found? Well, number one, to drive success, we've got to stop focusing on the result alone and focus on the behaviors that drive these. It's interesting. If you go to any organization, some may say, well, we want to focus on performance. Well, actually, what you want to focus on are perhaps the culture that drives performance. You can't just focus on the performance. So behaviors are tangible and modifiable. One thing really critical to understand. So unlike outcomes, they are also imminently observable and can be assessed. We can also think about the predictive power of behaviors. If we're talking about it as leading indicator, in fact, it is, but by virtue of it being a leading indicator, now you have a predictor of what outcomes are likely to happen or not if you work on the behaviors. And finally, inclusivity. While outcomes might seem distinct and broad, behaviors are immediate, they're personal, they're things that we do every day. And by fostering an environment and the right standards and the right environment may encourage certain behaviors that we want to see to shape our culture. Off the shelf models are an issue. We tend to just adopt anything that worked with others. Say, right, if it worked with another organization, let's bring it. It will work here, surely. So the cut, copy, and paste culture, be careful. This is your own unique environment. It has your own unique challenges. It has its own even unique pressures, environmental pressures. So really, there's no shortcuts. You've got to understand your own culture. If culture is unique, which it should be, of course, understanding your own behaviors and your own environment and what they drive. So beware off the shelf stuff you can just simply borrow. The third key point is leaders are indeed the custodians of organization culture, but guess what? Everyone is accountable for it. But for leaders, what it really means is that it's not just good enough to say, I do. You cannot just be the behavioral champion. You must really work every day to create the environment, the workplace environment that enables everyone to be able to champion the pursued behaviors. This is really important, and it is your job. The one thing I always say to leaders, critically, you cannot have all the answers to every problem, every issue, every challenge. But what you got to do is be an absolute champion at the behaviors that you want to drive and creating the environment. So, with culture analytics, the three things I often bring out in the book, which I think are important in the journey, is to understand the high insight, and foresight. The high insight stuff. So, why did it happen? Do we really know why it happened? Typically, we know, well, an incident happened. Okay, it happened. So what led to the incident? What happened? Is there a culture element? Is there behavioral elements? Is there talent? Is there equipment failure? You've really got to understand the why. Analytics should be able to give you the why it happened. Obviously, you've got to get to the why before we get to the where. And critically, we've got to understand, is it the people? Is it how people behave? Or is it the place? So is it what the place drives certain behaviors? That distinction between people and place is really important. The insight, along with the predictive analytics, now you can understand how you can improve something. So if I want, okay, these are the outcomes I really want, or the outcomes I want to stop for that matter. But how do I get there? What are what are the levers? What are the behaviors that really predict that outcome? Is there a roadmap? Can I connect all of those different outcomes so that I have an analytic story? This is known as, sometimes you hear it, we'll call it the path analysis, but it could be the root cause analysis. Can you give me a roadmap of what I need to achieve first, second, and third? And I've got some very specific examples in the book all around, and I often use that for driving a roadmap of how. The foresight. Now that I understand what are the behaviors that drive great things, that manage my risk, can I actually look at the entire picture of where those behaviors might be absent and present? Is it place for people in my organization? Now, nothing has happened, nothing has gone wrong, but we know that the said behaviors, their absence, could drive unintended, undesired outcomes. Could we now stop it before it even happens? That's what true behavior and culture analytics should give you. Those three critical insights are important, or facets of insights, I should say. And let's think about driving change. What are the critical ways that we can drive change? What are our allies? And again, using three focus points that drive the people and the place, and they are capability. It's about the people. It refers to individuals' ability to enact the desired behavior. Think about expressive. Do they have the psychological environment to be able to drive that? Do they know how, when to be expressive, about what issues, to whom, where to raise it to? This is all about ability, building capability for people to be able to do so. The place becomes all about opportunity and motivation. Does this environment, this workplace culture, provide me the opportunity to enact certain behaviors? What are the interventions that might be policy, even process led, that might actually provide the opportunity? And finally, motivation. It's the driving force behind the behaviors. Am I even motivated? Do I get recognized for speaking my mind or saying there's a problem? Or the minute I do that, actually, I'm completely shut down and perhaps asked to get out of the way? So really quite important to understand those three facets. They are your big three allies, and you cannot just emphasize one over the other. If you need a behavior to be enacted, manifested completely, you've got to think about the people can do this, the place drives, and in fact promotes that behavior. That means both capability, opportunity, and motivation have to be aligned to do this. So I hope you found that useful today. It's just a quick glimpse, really, of why the book and some key research findings. There's a lot more in there about all of these topics in part one. And part two is many, many, many case studies, which I'll bring to life, hopefully, and other case studies even in the journey on this YouTube channel. Thank you for dialing in. If you're enjoying the content, please subscribe to this channel, and wish I could see you all in future series. Thank you.